Hello, everyone. I'm JT Wistrcill.
And I'm Tom Wistrcill.
And we're excited to welcome you to another edition of
From the Couch.
Yes, we are back for a post-Super Bowl recap. And you may be wondering why I'm talking first. Well, we figured since I'm majoring in sports journalism, broadcasting, it's time I start doing some hosting duties just to gain more experience. And more than likely one day I'll be in the hosting role, then say an analyst role if I'm doing a show like this or something like that. So a good way to get experience and a good idea by the commish.
And there we go. And it's time to pass the torch.
The torch. Metaphorical torch.
Yes. Good luck with your hosting debut.
Yes.
JT's the man.
But it'll still look similar facially, of course, because of that. We have that in common. But on today's show, we're going to hit the Super Bowl recap, 3 takeaways we've each had from the biggest game of the year, talk a little bit of Carson Wentz, and then I got a surprise question for you at the very end that I think is a very interesting topic to bring up. But to kick it off with your first point, what are you going with, Dad?
Well, there's lots to talk about with this game. Obviously there was ups and downs. The Chiefs were struggling. Tom Brady did a lot, and that, to me, there's the obvious piece of the offensive line play for the Chiefs. And but the Chiefs knew going in that was going to be a challenge, right? They also knew that the Bucs were not going to allow them to beat them deep. And so what did the Bucs do? They played a very deep zone. Too deep, very deep. They're basically saying there's no way to let Tyreek Hill go for how many yards did he go in the first quarter last
200.
time?
I have something like 200.
200 some yards. They said we're not going to do that. Okay, so the Chiefs never adjusted to that. They should have anticipated that they were going to have trouble blocking the defensive ends, and that the Bucs were going to play deep and give up the short passes. And so what should they have done? They should have gone and I'm going to go there in Pittsburgh Steelers mode and thrown 3-4 yard dink and dump passes until those safeties came up. They never adjusted. They never said, you know what, you're right, we can't block these two guys, so we're going to just do that all the way down the field. And then, after you bring your safeties up, we're going to do a little play action, and boom, we're going to beat you over the top. So their lack of adjustment was really disappointed in Andy Reid and Bieniemy, who most people would say are just tremendous offensive minds, to not adjust and make that happen. And they never did, and they paid the price for it. That's my first point. Shame on those Chiefs for not doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point made by you. And also, there's so many prop bets you could do for the Super Bowl. If there was from the couch betting, always take the over on Steelers references, because they're going to be plentiful in these episodes. And I do want to touch on one thing of your point. Even they burned the timeouts before the half. They went down how they always, it either helps them out or it kills them the way they call those games like that. Being aggressive and going deep, being aggressive and using the timeouts. It burned them that game. And let's talk a little bit more about that offensive line performance from the Chiefs, because it was putrid. The Buccaneers pressured on 52% of Mahomes' dropbacks. It's the most ever in a Super Bowl. It was a crazy amount. Every single guy up front was eating and winning their one-on-ones. Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett had 10 pressures in the Super Bowl. That was the second most ever, only behind Nick Bosa's from a year ago. Ndamukong Suh, having Vita Vea back was huge as well. And the other thing they were doing was they liked the mismatches. So a lot of times they'd kick JPP and Barrett on the inside and have those guys rush from the insides. And they were just so overmatched, the offensive line. There were some times I'm like, oh, they're running a screen here. Oh no, it's just a total jailbreak and 4 guys got through because they're just literally incapable of blocking the guys in front of them. Which is why it was ridiculous that, as we talked about, mess-ups by the coaches and Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, they should have left more guys in the block. Over 90% of the time, they only had a 5-man protection. Leave an extra tight end in. You can have Kelsey on the outside, bring in a blocking tight end, bring in an extra offensive lineman, leave the running back in a little bit more, help him chip. There were a lot of things they could have done, and they didn't do a good job. And one fun wrinkle I'm going to throw in about this game, Mike Remmers was the starting left tackle in this game. A few years ago, he was the starting right tackle in a certain Super Bowl where we saw one of the most iconic plays from a defensive lineman. Do you remember by chance what that was he gave up?
I don't.
It was Von Miller's strip sack on Cam Newton. He's the one. Von Miller won Super Bowl MVP because of his performance on Mike Remmers. Shaq Barrett repeated it. Learning from Shaq Barrett was the backup to Von Miller in that Super Bowl as well. So lots of parallels and connections there. And so that was just a fun little nugget I wanted to throw in there. And the Chiefs' right tackle, Andrew Wiley, I don't think he should play a game in the NFL again. I think it was that bad, honestly. He kicked over from right guard to right tackle. It's one of the worst games I've ever seen out of a right tackle. So those two especially killed this Chiefs offense.
Football comes down to the trenches, right? If you control the line of scrimmage, you control the game. pretty simple, that's kind of what happened. If you had to break down the Super Bowl to somebody that had never seen a football game before, that's the one thing you would say about the game. So, all right, I'm going to talk about something that I think happened during the season this year. I'm just going to put on my imagination hat, and I'm going to go back to the Buccaneers being 7-5 and having problems, and some of their problems airing out in the media between Bruce Arians and Tom Brady and stuff like that. And I'm going to guess a meeting happened in Bruce Arians' office with Tom Brady came in and shut the door, and Arians was behind his desk doing some paperwork, charting plays, that type of stuff. And he said, Coach, here's the deal. He said, you're the head coach of the team. You make all the decisions. I'm just the quarterback. But I promise you this. If you let me do this my way, I can lead us to the promised land. And Bruce Arians was able to tuck his ego aside, probably decided, okay, let's see. I've got, 0 Super Bowl rings, and he's got 6. I think I might do it his way.
Yeah.
I think I might do that. And so Bruce Arians, to his credit, who has been around some great players before and great quarterbacks before, I think said, you know what? We're not going to throw deep all the time in that. We're going to let Tom work the middle of the field, make the plays, and once in a while take a shot. And the guys adjusted, the offense adjusted, the team bought in, and they got on a roll and won 3 road games and then won the Super Bowl and that. And I give Bruce Arians a lot of credit for that, because I have no guarantee that any of that happened, which I just mentioned. But it makes sense if you know things about team football, and you know coaches' egos sometimes get in the way. And they didn't in this place, because you saw how the team changed. And so where does that go to? Usually goes to the leaders on the team, not the coaches. Coaches don't change the players, but the players can change themselves. And that's what you saw positive there. So that's a little bit of what I got out of the game last night with the Buccaneers.
I think you talked about Tom Brady's leadership, and that was something I thought about while I was watching this game. Like, I think there's a few Super Bowls that could have won the way the Super Bowl played out. I think there were a few quarterbacks, if you put them into Brady's position, they win that specific game. But I don't think the Buccaneers make it there without someone of Tom Brady's caliber at quarterback. The confidence he brings in, the leadership he instills, he does a great job. I think his leadership even helped a guy like Tristan Wirfs. His improvement over the year was drastic. It was drastic, giving up only 1 sack the entire year, and a Khalil Mack nonetheless. So that offensive line was amazing for Tampa too. So no, I think it was a great point made by you. And I'm gonna go back to the Chiefs.
Okay.
Patrick Mahomes deserves little to no blame for this loss. I could just read this one stat, but I got a few more also. Patrick Mahomes was pressured more in this game than any QB in Super Bowl history, 29 times, passing the record set by Jim Kelly all the way back in the day back then after their tragic 4 straight Super Bowl losses. Tom Brady faced his fewest pressures, just for a comparison, 4 in any Super Bowl of his career. So that's the biggest difference in the game. And you might think, Mahomes was sacked a decent amount, but it could have been a lot more. And he did his best to buy time for his receivers to get open. 497 yards he ran, the most ever by a quarterback before throwing a pass.
That's crazy.
Absolutely ridiculous. And the job he does, making guys miss, staying up. There were a few plays of the game that if a catch is made, we saw some drops, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now. If they're made, it's set up because of incredible plays by Patrick Mahomes. The first touchdown pass that should have been to Tyreek Hill. Yes, it's a tough catch, guy in his face. Ball went right through his hands and hit him in the helmet. I know it's a tough catch, but still. On that play, they didn't have the corner blitz block. They only picked up one of them. Corner comes through. He does almost elevates the shoulders a little bit and then climbs the pocket like that, makes the guy miss. He might be the only player in the NFL who can do that. And of course, everyone's talking about, I've heard people even say it's one of the greatest plays that never happened now, is if he would have completed that 30-yard pass as he was diving out like this. It was an insane throw, and another one that was dropped. So the biggest thing for me was the drops, the amount of pressure. And honestly, I do think the toe injury bothered him a little bit. I don't think he was 100%. He was moving around a little gimpy at times. I know he rushed for 497 yards, but compare that game to some of the other games earlier in the season, I don't think you'll see the same mobility and movements out of him. So I really don't put much, if any, blame on Patrick Mahomes for this loss.
Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with you.
Okay.
Because I don't think you can say that the quarterback is not to blame much. Ultimately, the quarterback's got to make the plays. I can go back to my point about changing the offense. Mahomes should have seen that and gone to the coaches and saying, here's what we're going to do now. They're taking away the stuff we want to do. We have to adjust. That's what good quarterbacks do as well. So something Mahomes can grow into there. But
that's a good point.
But nonetheless,
Yeah.
he did make some plays.
Third final point.
Final point. So a little bit of stats here, and then I'm going to talk about my key here. So let's look at some stats. First downs, roughly the same. Total plays, roughly the same. The Chiefs ran 6 more plays than that. Total yards, the Chiefs had 10 more total yards than the Buccaneers. They each had the ball 11 times. Right? So look at passing yards, the Chiefs obviously had more by about 50. The Buccaneers ran the ball for 50 more yards. Okay.
Right.
Penalties, huge difference there, right? Let's not underestimate the result of the game on those penalties. That flipped the game. So penalties, and then the other one we always talk about that decides football games is turnovers. JT, come on, turnovers.
I thought we were I was still stuck on the penalties.
Turnovers. It was penalties and turnovers. So Chiefs had 2 turnovers, Buccaneers 0. Okay, but my last point is this. Yeah, there were all of those things. Turnovers were a part of it, caused by the great defensive pressure, and the great game plan that the Buccaneers had. Brady is the best quarterback ever. What he proved last night is his calmness over a football team lifts everybody up with confidence, and they play. But you have to have the players. And the players on the defense for the Buccaneers, better than I thought they could be in a big game. They were awesome. They were all over the field. They made things hard on Kelsey. They obviously made it hard on Mahomes. They controlled the line of scrimmage. They never got beat deep. They turned the ball over. And their linebackers are fast and furious, and I was really impressed. Offense wins game, but defense wins
championships.
And last night, the defense won the championships for the Buccaneers. That's what I got.
It does still apply, and I will give you some credit. You said you thought the only way the Buccaneers could win this game was if
they turned the ball over.
And the Chiefs turned the ball over.
They did.
So that was really interesting. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about Todd Bowles. And in case you're a certain reporter watching, that's the defensive coordinator for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Instead of the offensive coordinator. But, it's a conversation for another day. Anyways, Todd Bowles has made his career off blitzing. And he was able to swallow it, change his up, say, you know what? It's not going to work. I'm going to do something different. And it worked so well. He realized, hey, we can get pressure with 4. And like you mentioned earlier, playing that deep zone was huge.
Yep.
Carlton Davis he was the one who gave up most of the yards to Tyreek Hill. He had a much better game. Jamel Dean was really good. None of these DBs were taken in the first round for Tampa, and they stepped up big time in this game. Another guy, shout out, Antoine Winfield Jr., who, if you remember back to our draft coverage, I had as the #1 safety in this draft.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I was maybe a little Golfer biased, but just watched him last year. He was just making play after play, made a few in the Super Bowl. Yes, he got flagged for it because he did it right in his face, but you got to love the confidence hitting Tyreek Hill with the deuces.
Oh, yeah.
As he got hit with so many times earlier
yes.
in their performance back then. Also, let's just talk a little bit more about those linebackers. I believe they have the best front seven in the NFL, this Buccaneers team. I talked about the D-line, but these 2 linebackers might be the best linebacker tandem in the NFL, honestly. Levante David, the job he did covering Travis Kelce, so impressive. Able to stay with him at almost all times. Yes, Kelce made some plays on him, but a lot of them weren't meaningful. End of the half stuff, like when the biggest time and they really needed it, he had trouble getting open. That's when he slipped and fell and then ended up dropping the pass after. Levante David in coverage. And Devin White, 22-year-old Devin White, just gets shot out of a cannon every play. A Tampa cannon, kind of fitting. 12 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. He had the interception late to completely close things out. And he's just a phenomenal player. He's only going to continue to get better. I think in 5 years he could easily be the best linebacker in the NFL with how good of a sophomore season he just had. And you have a pretty good Devin on your Steelers team, but there's a reason Devin White was taken in the top 5. So impressed by Todd Bowles, who will be a head coach in the NFL in a year from now, I think.
Yep, you're probably right. So I can't disagree with that. They were really good.
All right, let's shift off the Super Bowl, and that officially closes out this NFL season.
Crazy.
And one thing that's improved the last few years in the NFL is the offseason. It's become a little bit more like the NBA. Ever since that year when Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, and Odell Beckham Jr., they all changed teams like that, then it's become more exciting to talk about. And a big reason for the excitement this year is the quarterback movement. The latest name to get thrown in with that bunch is Carson Wentz, who's rumored to be on the trade block, new head coach. They're looking like they're going to go forward with Jalen Hurts. start fresh, willing to eat $33 million in dead money to move off this guy. And the question is, what can they get for him? What do you think teams should give up for Carson Wentz?
Well, I think it's really hard. If you pretend that you're a GM of a franchise in the NFL and you got to decide, what's this guy worth? What do I want to do? Different than like with the Stafford situation, you're getting a proven starter who most people would say is, probably in the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, right?
I for sure agree.
You're not getting that with Carson Wentz right now. Now, a year ago, people would have thought that. People would have had him in the top 10, 12 quarterbacks in the league. Not so fast. So, I think the hard thing is, that somebody's going to want a first-round draft pick for him because that's what you're paying for.
Yeah.
The amount of money he's getting paid like a first-round starting quarterback, so they're going to want a first-rounder. I think teams are going to have to really check themselves to think if it's worth a first-rounder. Your quarterback situation must really be in shambles, proven shambles, I think, to give up a first-rounder. And so now, saying that, I think some team will be stupid enough to do it and give up a first rounder this year and a second rounder next year or something like that to take a guy that in the past has won a lot of games as a starter and looked really good. I think one of the challenges, he's been pretty injury prone lately. And that is scary when you're talking about a high paid quarterback. Can he stay healthy? And so I think that's going to give teams a lot of pause. I wouldn't give up a first rounder for him, but like I said, I think there's 2 or 3 teams that will, and the Eagles will jump on it because they can also draft a quarterback. They have the 6th pick, I think, in the draft.
Yes.
They could draft a quarterback there if they want one. So that's what I think, JT. I think it's a hell of a risk, and I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I got some quarterback situations that are in shambles for you that I think could trade for Carson Wentz. At number 3, I got the Saints. You may think, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston. Number 1, Jameis is a free agent. We don't know if he's going to be back. And Jameis, yes, he throws a lot. We've seen him throw a lot of touchdowns, but we've also seen him throw a lot of interceptions. So is Carson Wentz an upgrade there? Right now, I would say yes. I think there is an argument to be made there, though, that, hey, after a year learning under him, could roll with Jameis or do something crazy with Taysom. So the Saints' first-round pick is the farthest back of these group of teams I'm going to talk about. So it might be okay for them to say, hey, let's roll the dice on a franchise quarterback that we need one in the draft. There's not going to be one good enough around for us. They could take him there. Any quarterback looks really good in Sean Payton's offense. I think he's one of the best offensive minds in the league. You get Michael Thomas back. Alvin Kamara's there. Behind that offensive line with that play calling, I think if Carson Wentz ended up in the Saints, it'd be a dramatic turnaround from what we saw last season. And let's not forget, I believe it was 3 years ago now when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, funny enough. If he stays healthy, he is the NFL MVP that year. So let's see if he can get back to that form in New Orleans. At number 2, I got Chicago. Matt Nagy, they've been in a quarterback limbo for a while. Yes, they got Nick Foles, but he's obviously not the answer there. And that's one of the things that would be so fun about this destination, obviously, is if he reunited with Nick Foles here. But John DeFilippo is their passing game coordinator. He was the quarterback's coach when they won a Super Bowl those few years ago in Philly. So that's where the connection comes from as well. And Nagy's wanted a guy like Wentz in there a while who can really open it up with his arm, and Wentz still has a pretty strong arm to me. So I think that fit would make a lot of sense to you. We know it's a good defense, and we know they're not bringing back Trubisky, so that would be another one that makes sense.
What do they give up? What do they have to give the Eagles to get him?
I just think
Bears.
I honestly think they should just be happy with the first and the second.
Okay.
Honestly.
So like I said, a first rounder this year and a second round next year.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And the last team I'll throw in here, I think it's the most obvious. It's the Colts. It's Frank Reich, who was the offensive coordinator of that team that won the Super Bowl. Right now, it's Jacob Eason as the starting quarterback, 5th round pick out of Washington. Or maybe 4th rounder. That is not a desirable destination, not a desirable quarterback you want right there. But if you're bringing in Carson Wentz behind that offensive line, run first offense, you got some young receivers who just need to stay healthy, have potential to be really good young players. I think that one makes the most sense by reuniting him with the guy he's had the most success with in Frank Reich. And if I had to bet money, I think it'll be the Colts, and I think they'll be okay parting with their first round pick. There's been rumors the Eagles want 2 first-round picks. You're not getting them, so just be happy with the one you're going to get. And I believe it'll be around in the 19 to 21 range, I believe is where the Colts falls. So those are my 3 teams.
Interesting. Yeah, I just pulled it up here. Colts are 21.
21.
Bears are 20. So you think if you're the Eagles, you take that.
I would. I don't know why you'd give up 2 first-round picks for Carson Wentz. Now, I don't know why you'd give up 2 for Matthew Stafford at the time, but to them makes him a Super Bowl contender. That's a different thing. I think that's where he's going to end up. So, finally, last topic on our episode today. This is the surprise question I have for you.
Okay.
It came out that Mike Evans is going to be willing to give up some of his money to have some guys come back to the team. Let's take a guy like Chris Godwin, for example. He could get a really high price tag in. Let's see, how much is he willing to leave on the table, right? Leave off the table, right? To come back and join a Super Bowl contender. So that's my question for you. First, let's do you're a non-quarterback. How much money in millions of dollars would you be willing to leave on the table to return to the team you just won the Super Bowl with?
A lot.
A lot?
A lot. And here's why. Because assuming I've made a bunch of money already, I still want to make money, but I want to win. And that's going to help me. It's going to help my quality of life. It's going to help. I can get maybe a longer term deal. I have more security there. I have a chance for bigger paydays. I mean, again, the bottom line is once players make some money, they want to win. You see it over and over again. That's why quarterbacks are willing to, that have won, are willing to reshuffle their deals and do that. So Mike Evans, he's played on some bad football teams, and he's obviously an excellent player. He'd practically play for free next year. He won't, but you know what I mean. So again, I think you give up a lot. I think what the NFL has taught me watching it is, it used to be only very few players made a lot of money, which means players weren't willing to do this. Now they all make so much money and endorsements and other things they can do besides their NFL salary that they're willing to take things off the table from dollar perspective because they want to be happy and they want to win. So to me, you don't give up everything, but you're willing to take a pretty good chop off. As long as you believe in the organization, they're going to treat you fairly, then you're willing to do it.
Okay, so you just hit, I think, why Ndamukong Suh should return. If you're Chris Godwin, let's say, I believe he was drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round. You didn't get a lot of money on that rookie deal. Then, what's the move?
Yeah, he's moving on.
You think he'll move on? Yeah, because he wants that first contract?
And you know what? They have to decide what they're going to do with Antonio Brown.
Yep.
And if they're going to keep him, then they don't need Chris Godwin. They can find someone else who will be cheaper, who will be like, I'll come play with Tom Brady. Sign me up. There will be plenty of players out there that want to do that. So I think somebody like him, he needs to go get paid, and somebody will pay him.
Definitely. He's a great receiver. And to your point, only 9 yards in the Super Bowl yesterday for Godwin. They were able to win it by checking the ball down, and Gronk was able to eat. But I think that's a really good point and a really interesting discussion to have. And that's going to do it for this episode of From the Couch. We appreciate you guys joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on another edition of
From the Couch!
We'll see you next time.